Hey, this is Pastor Tim. We have arrived at Thursday of Holy Week, an incredibly important day. Jesus gathers with his disciples in an upper room in Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover with his disciples. As they begin that evening in that upstairs space, Jesus assumes the role of the lowest servant in the entire household, and he takes off his outer garment and takes the basin and washes the feet of each one of the disciples. He leads them in the celebration and the observation of the Passover, which marks the Jewish people's freedom of bondage from Egypt. He begins to tell them that it has brand new meaning because that he is their new freedom that they have from bondage, not just bondage from some other nation, but bondage from the spiritual things that grip us and hold us in terms of sin. He dismisses Judas to go and finish the arrangements that he's made for the betrayal. He warns Peter that as much as Peter in all his bravado says, "I will never leave you," Jesus says, "You will forsake me 3 times this very night." The disciples finish their time upstairs by singing a hymn and then depart to the Mount of Olives, which was basically a public space just outside of the city that would give them the ability to go into Jerusalem the next day for the Passover. Before the evening is done, Jesus spends time in prayer. He groans and moans in terms of his dialogue with God the Father and says, if there's any way for this to pass, may we find another way. But he also submits and says, it's not my will, but yours. As he finishes that prayer time, Judas arrives with the guards, and he is arrested in that very place before the disciples. I think one of the things that strikes me the most about this whole narrative is the fact that every item in this story is perfectly paced. There was the opponents of the chief priests, there was the betrayer, there was the work of Satan himself that was pushing in, and yet all of the things that Jesus needed to do, wanted to do, unfold in his timing in perfect order, and not a single thing is missed. Well, what a great reminder that is for our lives when we feel like all kinds of things swirl about us. Seems like sometimes we are the victims of all kinds of things that push and shove us, but to know that there is a God who perfectly times this world, who makes sure that all of our experiences are perfectly paced, and that these things are completed according to his will and to his order. May we be reminded that even in the most difficult times and the most difficult places, the Father has his hand on all things. He has never pushed or rushed or moved into places where he has no intention to be. May that be an encouragement to you on this Holy Thursday.